Ni hao, I am teacher Queenie who is learning Mandarin language. Today I will be sharing to you the important phrases in introducing yourself. But first, let me introduce myself. 我的名字是 Queenie V. Ancheta. 我今年新生5岁，我是 Philippine Ren. Now let us tackle the important details in filling out forms. Are you ready? In English, it is first name. In Mandarin, it is Mingcheng. Again, Mingcheng. Or you can say Mingsu. Mingsu. In English, it is middle name. In Mandarin, you can say Zhongshen Mingzi. Zhongshen Mingzi. In English, it is last name. In Mandarin, you can say Sheng. Again, Sheng. In English, it is age. In Mandarin, you can say Nianling. Nianling. In English, it is birthdays. In Mandarin, you can say 生日, 生日. In English, it is sex or gender. In Mandarin, you can say 性别, 性别. In English, it is nationality. In Mandarin, you can say 国籍, 国籍. In English, you can say address. In Mandarin, it is 地址, 地址. In English, it is country. In Mandarin, you say 国家, 国家. In English, it is telephone number. In Mandarin, you can say 电话号码, 电话号码. In English, it is cell phone number. In Mandarin, you say 手机号码, 手机号码. In English, it is spouse. In Mandarin, you can say 伴侣, 伴侣. In English, it is Philippines. In Mandarin, you can say Philippine, Philippine. In English, it is China. In Mandarin, you can say 中国. In English, it is Filipino. In Mandarin, you can say Philippine Ren. Philippine Ren. In English, you can say Chinese. In Mandarin, you say 中国, 中国, or 中国人, 中国人. In English, it is what? In Mandarin, you say 什么, 什么. In English, it is who. In Mandarin, we're going to say 谁, 谁. In English, it is where. In Mandarin, you can say 哪里, 哪里. In English, it is when. In Mandarin, you say 什么时候, 什么时候. In English, it is how. In Mandarin, you're going to say 什么 什么. In English, it is why. In Mandarin, you're going to say 为什么为什么. In English, it is which. In Mandarin, we say 哪一个哪一个. In English, it is how many. In Mandarin, you say 多少多少. In English, it is how much. In Mandarin, it is 多少钱多少钱. In English, where do you live? In Mandarin, they say 你住在哪里 In English, what is your nationality? In Mandarin, you're going to say 你的国籍是什么 In English, what is your telephone number? In Mandarin, you're going to say 你的电话号码是什么 In English, what is your telephone number? In Mandarin, you're going to say 你的手机号码是什么 In English, it is who are your parents? In Mandarin, you're going to say 谁是你的父母 In English, who is your mother? In Mandarin, 谁是你母亲 In English, who is your father? In Mandarin, 谁是你父亲 In English, where do you study? In Mandarin, 你在哪里学习? Thank you for listening to me.